among these hills, to my friends who listen. Chapter 1. For someone on the run, it was a very good deal. Bob and Carol, the owners of the house, had been kind of nervous the whole time, eyeing behind me and throwing furtive glances at one another. I could tell. They were ready to get their money and get out of there. However gently and tactfully, I pressed and nudged them to have a notary present when we signed off on the paperwork. I found a notary who could come that same day and paid for everything myself. I just didn't want any problems. An immigrant with a fake identity and recently created native documents, the last thing I needed was a property dispute. It was a funny picture, really, those two stringy haired exemplars of rural poverty, clearly unaccustomed to being sober. Myself in jeans and the clearly old navy blue blouse, and the short, neat little man of a notary, complete with his crisp little shirt and suit and tie, all trying to make a half civilized encounter of the meeting. I could see the two trying to be real cordial about everything. Those two just itching to get out, aren't they? Ah, well, better for me, I guess. The notary was quick to get out, too. The house was not in great condition. The owners didn't help much either. Well, I paid them what they wanted in cash, dropped in a comment somewhere along the lines of this being all I had ever worked for, being thankful for such a low price on a house and a little property, so they don't ask questions. They didn't. I watched their chipping red tin can of a pickup truck rattling off down the driveway. I knocked on the door that morning. By sunset, I owned the house. I wanted to take a chair out onto the porch, but the idea of touching that furniture more than I had to was quite repulsive. Instead, I just stood on the small concrete porch with peeling white railing and looked out. The small house stood on the side of a big, forested hill, one in the company of many other such hills. Straight from the porch ran a steep trodden path among leaves and a gravel driveway. The forest whispered overhead. A bird sang. I smiled and closed my eyes. "Who are you pretty thing?" My eyes flew open. My arm instinctively twitched in the direction where I usually had my pistol. Down on the path, squinting up at me, stood an old woman. I couldn't quite tell her age. She had thinning gray hair, a bony outline, wrinkly, suntanned skin, and was missing quite a few teeth. Her old, holey overalls went over an unequally old but clean plaid shirt. In her hand she held a grocery bag with something inside. "Me?" I asked. You, dear. Who else?" "My name is, Anna." "Zan?" I shook my head. "Just Anne. Anne Martin." Dang, I better watch out or I'm gonna screw myself up. "Well, Anne, where are the owners?" "I brought 'em their eggs. Mighty nice of 'em to make an old woman walk up all them hills when they could as well come themselves. Well, where are they?" "They left, ma'am. I bought the house. I'm the owner now." "Oh. Well, what am I gonna do with them eggs?" "I'd buy them if you'll sell them to me. I don't got anything yet. Just come over here." "All right, well, come on down. It'll be 250. I'll just get my money and come down. Don't think you're not welcome in my house. I just didn't get a chance to clean up the place yet, but you can come in if you'd like." The woman shifted her weight and let out a sharp laugh. "No, Miss Martin, you run and get your money. I'll stand here. I got no business going in a haunted house." Despite myself, I felt uneasy. It was how she said it. Not just a superficial superstition. I saw a dark shadow flash over her eyes for just an instant. You can't fake that. I should know. For the rest of the encounter, I was tense, even if I did manage to hide it. Haunted? I never heard. How would you know? All the neighbors know it. And how would they know? "Well, old Steve McBurrow been hunting up here once. Now, don't think he's one to hunt on other folks' land. He's a good fella. He's a neighbor of yours. See that pine yonder?" She pointed to the right. I leaned off the porch. Sure enough, a tall, venerable pine stood some distance away on a sort of clearing. I nodded, and the old lady continued. "Well, that pine is where your land ends and his starts. Steve was out hunting one night, when it was dark, and heard a sound. He thought maybe someone was hurt. He walked up to the pine and stood and listened, and he heard, like from the wind, a child crying. Down just weepin', and he said, but not in a human child way, like a ghost. He don't believe in ghosts, but I told him you never know. How the woman would know how baby ghosts cried was a mystery to me, but I didn't ask. Instead, I looked thoughtful for a second, excused myself, and brought out the money. "Please take 5. I don't have change. Then you can just bring me more eggs and another 250. "All right, hon. And what was your name?" "Susan. Susan Marshall." "Thank you, Mrs. Marshall. Have a great day." I watched her form retreat down the hill. The wind picked up my mid-length brown hair loosened from my ponytail, and I thought I heard, or maybe just imagined, somewhere the sound of wind chimes. Obviously, in such a house as this, sleeping on the mattress was out of the question until it had aired out for at least 2 weeks. I removed it outside. There was no bed frame, just a mattress on the unpolished wooden floor, and then took out every piece of clothing, a empty beer can, and other such loose, random items from the bedroom. By then it was twilight. I lit the wood-burning stove. One other peculiarity of this house, it had no electricity. No electricity meant no communication. No communication meant safety, and that was something I liked. I lit a kerosene lamp as well. Its cozy scent filled the room. I took my only warm coat plus a few of my own bed sheets out of my suitcase and fashioned a sort of bed for myself. It's not cold. If I sleep in my clothes, I should be fine for the night. My eyelids drooped. I was falling asleep. I checked one last time that my pistol was by my bedside, and fell through, and fell, fell. I woke up without knowing why. At first, I just knew I was scared. Suddenly, I thought I heard a sound. The blood froze in my veins. Again, a whimper, then a sob, and childish crying. Thin, wispy, sorrowful, like the wind. I tried to reach for my gun, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed with fear. I had stood before, the cold barrel of a pistol pressed on my head from behind, counting seconds. But now all I could think of was the old woman's face, transformed into something clandestine and eerie, and pictures of the night I ran from, and the dark and whimpering somewhere below. Unknown. I swallowed, forced myself to take a breath. Slowly, trembling in every muscle, I tiptoed out of the bedroom. The wood stove had run out of fuel, only tiny embers kept their glow. I watched them in a sleepy haze, then another sob sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. My eyes followed the sound and found the door to the basement. I'd seen it before, but sort of ignored it. Besides, ever since childhood, I'd been deathly afraid of spiders. I could bear many, many things. No spiders. I actually felt my eyes widen. Oh, oh no. I ran for my electric flashlight, then unlatched the basement door. I slowly walked down the creaky stairs. Oh, how I hated the light of the flashlight in the dark. It always brought me the worst thoughts, and after that night, but I made it down. I noticed the sound stopped. I scanned the room with the flashlight. A metallic glint caught my eye. A metal bowl. I cleared my throat. My voice came out raspy and trembling. Anyone in here? Silence. I commanded my legs to move forward, away from the stairs and life-saving way out. I could only imagine how the door would slam shut, closing me in with this darkness, all the spiders it was sure to contain, and the mysterious sobbing forever. I gingerly stepped over the dirty floor, lighting up the space piece by piece. In one of the corners, a pile of rags caught my eye. The pile moved, and from it emerged a dirty, pale, emaciated human face. The tiny creature stared at me, and I stared at it. No other way to describe it. Its eyes squinted in the light of my flashlight. And that was when I noticed the smell. I had thought the house was just dirty, but down here, well, it smelled like an outhouse. The creature's eyes reflected my light. I approached it, it sank back. When I reached for it, it tried to run, but I was too quick and grabbed it with one hand. It bit me, but I held on. I transferred the flashlight to my teeth and grabbed the creature in both arms. In such a fashion, I hauled my little captive up the stairs. No, I'm not proud of it, but I tied her up. I wrapped her in a little cocoon of bed sheets and tied it with my scarf and sleeves of my sweatshirt. I wanted to use my belt too, but she looked at it with eyes so wide my heart got a little crack in it. So I added another scarf instead. Like I said, I'm not proud of it, but I needed a fire. I thought she'd run, and I was not excited at the prospect of chasing a naked, dirty child who probably had rickets through the woods in the middle of the night. Yes, it was a she, a female human child. Her condition didn't allow me to call her a little girl. A warm, newly lit fire crackled in the wood stove. In the light of the kerosene lamp, I studied my human cocoon. Her face was tiny, bony, and frail. Her big brown eyes sank deep into her skull, her long blonde hair a matted mess. The bones of her childish shoulders stuck out sharply from under the sheets. I couldn't tell her age. The child stared at me without understanding, like a little critter who'd been cornered by a snarling dog. What am I going to do with you? Silence answered. I sighed. Whatever we do next, I think you need a bath. I'ma go check all the doors so you don't get out. That would be problem, wouldn't it? She didn't answer, just followed me with those big eyes and was present, so distinctly present in the room. As I was checking the locks, another thing occurred to me. Assuming the previous owners were her parents, why hadn't they taken her with them? They were clearly abusive, psychopathic drunkards, but weren't they afraid I'd report them to the police? Of course, maybe they thought out it would take a lot to get me involved in a legal proceeding. Perhaps they, for some reason, decided I couldn't prove their guilt if I tried. After all, none of the neighbors seemed aware they had any children. But still, these two might be a problem. Just in case, I walked over to my bag and took out an extra magazine for my pistol. I brought the gun out of my bedroom and laid it on the small foldable table in the living room. When the girl caught sight of it, she whimpered and shook. Now I got a little scared. Hey, what's wrong? It's just a pistol. I have it for self-defense. You scared? She kept shaking. What am I going to do with you? Oh, right, the bath. I took some soap and washed the bathtub. This property had developed spring and running water. I filled the tub about halfway, then set to heating more water on the stove. Back then, I didn't know there was a whole system for heating bath water, but more about that later. I heated about 5 pots and filled the tub the rest of the way. Then I carried the child, kicking and screaming, to the bathroom. At first, she flailed and splashed until I was soaked and she'd figured out she wasn't going anywhere. The warm water soothed both of us. A hazy steam rose from the tub as I carefully rubbed her neck and shoulders with a clean washcloth. Her nose whistled a little as I lathered her matted hair. The foam came out brown. The bath water looked like mop water when you're about done mopping. I used some extra warm water to rinse her off and wrapped her in a towel. I held her, so small and warm, and felt her breath in my ear. I dressed the child in a pair of my shorts and my t-shirt, and she suddenly looked a whole lot more human. Her hair, now that was a problem. My first instinct was to chop it off. I didn't want to, it was awfully pretty, flickering in the lamplight like that. Should have tried untangling it some when it was still soapy. If she gets a cold from sleeping with wet hair, that'll be bad. She silently leaned on me as we sat by the stove. Its heat radiated to our faces. I carefully combed her golden locks, sometimes freeing a single hair at a time. I unconsciously started humming a melody I'd liked, some time before, in that other life. It was 2 hours past midnight when it occurred to me to make her some eggs.